Imagine you're like deep in the Appalachian wilderness, totally off the grid. You go to filter your drinking water, and the flow just, well, it crawls to a halt.
Right.
You open the filter expecting mud, and staring back at you is a literal live salamander.
It is the perfect reminder that the trail is definitely not some pristine, polished painting. I mean, it's gritty, it's highly unpredictable, and it demands constant problem solving.
So true. Welcome to a unique visual journal deep dive. Today, we are acting as your audio guides, basically overlaying the typed journal entries of a really grueling Appalachian Trail adventure with 3 hikers. We have Jeff, whose trail name is Rooster, Gary, known as Trucks, and Greg, who goes by Critter.
And if you are following along with the visual journal, we are unpacking the unvarnished story behind those day-by-day typed logs.
Exactly.
Looking right at day 1, or D1 in the journal, that unpredictability starts before they even hit the dirt.
Oh, yeah. They arrive in the trail-friendly town of Waynesboro to sort out logistics with Boomar.
Right. Yeah. Boomhar is a seasoned hiker who runs Stanimal's Hostel. He sets them up with shuttles and explains their options for slack packing.
Which is just when hikers leave their heavy gear behind to hike a section with only a lightweight day pack.
Right.
But you know, the craziest part of D1 is their last taste of civilization. They are sitting in this small diner, gearing up to completely disconnect from the world, and they end up watching an Argentina versus Switzerland World Cup match.
Oh, right, with an actual hiker from Switzerland.
Yeah, it is such a surreal collision of global culture and deep wilderness preparation.
And that collision of civilization and raw nature, it really does not stop in town. The moment they hit the actual trail on D2, nature starts asserting itself in deeply inconvenient ways.
Yeah, like tackling McAfee Knob in the pouring rain.
Right, and taking cover at the newly renovated Cohuta shelter, which brings us right back to your salamander story.
Yes, that happened while filtering water at the shelter. You pump the handle, it clogs like a bad engine line, and boom, there is an amphibian in the hose.
That is just wild. But even soaked in dealing with wildlife in their plumbing, they're still running into the outside world.
Right, they meet traveling nurses at the shelter, pitching them on future hikes, like the Grand Canyon rim to rim.
And that mix of raw nature and human infrastructure gets literally shocking on D3. They walk under some high-voltage power lines, and their metal hiking poles start discharging static electricity right into their hands.
So we're up here, we just crossed the trail there, but right above us, check out this electrical line. Goes all the way across, and you can probably hear it right there. But I just noticed something. I was standing on that rock, and then my pole was touching the rock. And when I touched the rock, or touched my pole, like I'm getting shot through my pole, through the ground, from that.
Wait, really? Just from walking under the lines?
Yeah, it happens because of electromagnetic induction. Those masts' power lines create a strong electric field in the air beneath them.
Oh, wow. So if you are holding metal poles, they essentially act as capacitors.
Exactly. They store that ambient energy until it grounds out right through your skin.
That is a very bizarre physical shock to the system. But they quickly get a massive psychological boost to balance it out. D3 marks the moment they realize they have passed the 1/3 mark to Katahdin.
Right, Katahdin being the mountain in Maine that serves as the northern terminus of the entire Appalachian Trail.
Passing a milestone like that is a huge mental victory on a long-distance hike. I mean, it takes real endurance to get that far.
It really does. And they celebrate on Blackberry Hill, eating wild berries and sharing childhood memories of baking pies.
And then transitioning right into Troutdale City Park, where they have to sleep through train horns and fire station calls.
While Greg secures a late-night victory in the card game Phase 10.
Naturally. But that endurance really turns into extreme resourcefulness by D4. They reach the high-elevation Fullheart shelter, meet a hiker named Halifax, and find out they have to rely entirely on a strict rainwater cistern system.
Right, because a severe drought has dried up all the local springs. Survival out there is less about walking and more about, well, real-time problem solving.
Definitely. I mean, without a stove, they are cold soaking their dinners, which literally means letting dried food sit in cold water for hours until it is soft enough to chew.
And to make their morning coffee without spilling precious water, one of them built a DIY funnel by cutting the bottom off an extra plastic bottle.
Creating a wide mouth to pour efficiently into their cup, That is trail ingenuity at its finest. But the drought gets so severe by DeFi that they have to pivot entirely, right?
Yeah, the water sources are so low, they are forced to leave the dirt pass and road walk along the paved Blue Ridge Parkway.
But even the pavement brings surprises. They run into some cyclists who point out a rare find, an indigo milk cap.
Oh yeah, it is a stunning, entirely blue fungus that happens to be completely edible. That constant struggle for basic resources really shifts your perspective on survival.
Wait, let me stop you there, though, because looking at D6, they completely break that immersive rhythm.
They do. They intentionally step away from the hike, and this was an intentional trip, not a hitchhike, to take a solemn historical detour to Bedford, Virginia.
Right, home of the National D-Day Memorial. Why completely break that momentum?
Well, because Bedford's history commands that kind of respect. Bedford suffered the highest per capita loss of any town in the United States during the war. 19 of the Bedford boys died within the first few minutes on Omaha Beach.
This is the inside of the Higgins boat. There's the ratchet that lowers the door, opens the door. Here's the engine. So that runs the whole ship. This is where the person running the boat would have stood. And as they're coming to the beach, this is what they would have seen. The door would have been closed. And on the inside, this is where everybody would have been standing inside the boat. So as far as the height of it goes, I'm standing where the bottom of the boat is. So that's the top, so it's right above my head right there. Here's the engine, what it looks like when it's outside of the boat. So that ran every one of the boats. So the Marine diesel engine. And then here's what it looks like from the ground. So you may have been in the water, jump off from here. You might have been in the water like as this high, all the way up to your chest. The Into the Jaws of Death and or the Taxi Cabs to Hell, the striking image is probably the best known photograph of D-Day. It was taken by Chief Photographer's mate Robert F. Sargent of the U.S. Coast Guard and shows elements of the 1st Infantry Division debarking onto Omaha Beach from an LCVP. It is called the Higgins boat.
The memorial is incredibly powerful, and it also honors the vital, often overlooked history of units like the 320th Anti-Aircraft Balloon Battalion.
It is incredibly sobering, and something that stood out in the journal was their observation of a damaged French World War I memorial monument on the grounds.
Le Monument aux Morts.
It was literally mutilated by artillery fire during World War II, but instead of fixing it, it is displayed with all its scars. I mean, does a damaged statue convey the cost of peace more honestly than a pristine one?
Absolutely. That ruined face bridges the tragedy of the First World War directly to the violent liberation of the Second. It proves peace carries a physical, lasting scar, and it forces you to reflect on what survival actually costs.
After such a heavy detour, D7 brings a return to the trail's rhythm. A sunrise trail run up Sugar Run Mountain. And a much-needed rest at an 1880s cabin at Woods Hole.
And they use that time to look ahead. They carefully log an inventory of the available resupply items at the cabin.
Oh, right, things like Alpine Star coffee and Righteous Felon jerky.
Exactly. They aren't logging what they consumed. They are documenting what is actually there as a reference for the next journey.
Always problem-solving, even for the future. So, as you explore this visual journal, think about your own life's journeys. When you look back, do you only remember the grand, pristine summit views, or do you remember the bizarre, gritty anomalies like a salamander clogging your water filter?